Hey team, Yasin here, and in this training, we're going to be going over the third problem with society's paradigm, with society's current way of thinking, and that is going to be the false belief of reality. Now, the very first question that we want to go ahead and answer is, why is this training important? Okay. Now, obviously, with this training, we're continuing our theme of the psychology of transformation, right? And we're talking about the third problem with that. And I want to go ahead and emphasize from the very beginning of this training that as your eyes start to open for the first time to really start to see the psychology behind transformation, what you're going to start to see as you go through these trainings is that you're going to start to see how all of this connects more and more and more with you making 6+ figures online with remote wellness. Okay, so I want you to remember this from the very beginning of all of these trainings. These trainings inside of this module are going to make you more money and more wealth than you could ever imagine in your entire life. And then not only that, it's going to also enable the transformation of your life, the transformation of the people around you, and really the transformation of your future clients as well. Okay, so this is why it's just so absolutely critical to make sure that you are approaching this with that frame of mind. Now, something very important. I want to go ahead and highlight this from the very beginning of this training. Problem number 3, this training that you are in right now, okay, is the Big Daddy. Okay, this is the one that holds everything together. And so as a result of that, it is actually one of the longest ones, okay? And so I'm asking you to go ahead and stick with me. I'm asking you to have patience with me. I'm asking you to go ahead and strap in and get comfortable because this is one of the most, if not the most important ones that you need to go through, okay? Now, I promise you, everything that you're about to go through inside of this training, it will change your life forever. The things that we're going to talk about inside of this training are going to stick with you for the rest of your life, and they're going to literally be the catalyst that allows you to be able to create the life that you want. Okay, so I just please ask, stick with me, have patience with me. It is going to be a little bit of a longer training. However, it's one of the most, if not the most important ones. Okay, so go ahead, strap in, get comfortable, and we're in for an amazing ride together inside of this training. So with that being said, as we are going through this training, what we're going to go ahead and do is I am going to go ahead and highlight some of the different parts of this training after every single section because it is one of those longer trainings that we do have. And so that way we can kind of see, okay, where are we in going through this training right now? And so we are going to have 6 parts as a result of this training. Okay. And so after every single part, I'll go ahead and let you know, hey, we finished this part, stick with me. You know, we're in for the long run, we're in for the marathon, and then we'll move on to the next part after that. Okay. So step by step, part by part, don't worry, you will get through this training. Again, I know it's going to be a little bit of a longer one, but I promise you it's going to be absolutely worth it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in and talk about the very first thing inside of this training, which is what society says about reality. Oh boy, we went there. We're starting with that, huh? Okay, let's dive into it. So the first question that I have for you is reality really reality? Okay, now I know that sounds super meta. I know that sounds like a philosophical question, like, dude, are you seriously talking about this right now? What are we talking about here, right? But I want you to stick with me for a second, okay? What is truth actually, okay? Because the thing is that in society, back in the day, people actually used to say that smoking cigarettes was healthy for you. They said that that was actually true because the doctor said that it was true, right? They said that, hey, you know, smoke a fresh cigarette. It's going to be good for you. It allows you to really practice bettering your lungs, right? And so for years, they said that smoking cigarettes was true. And so many people believed that it was true. But if they said that it was true and people said and believed that it was true, does that make it true? Right? So what is the truth really, right? What is reality? I got another example for you. Let's go ahead and talk about the oh so famous food pyramid, right? For so many years, I think it was for 35 years, the FDA said that breads and carbs were the most important foods to eat daily. In fact, they put it at the bottom of the food pyramid, and in the food pyramid, the bottom means the one that you should have the most amount of, okay? And so they said that this is the food plan that they recommended for 35 years plus by the FDA, okay? It was the truth. It was the way that things should be, okay? And then in the last decade, we've come to learn that starches, grains actually raise insulin, right? And this is why so many people today have type 2 diabetes now, because of the fact that the FDA recommended having a lot of starchy foods inside of your diet, okay? And then as a result, guess what the FDA decided to do? They decided to change the truth. Wow. So then what is the truth, right? What is actual reality, right? And so the thing is that society and what society says about reality is that they insist that there is only one way to look at everything, right? They insist that this is the way that it has to be. This is the way that it is. And yet, society continues to change its mind all the time about what truth and reality actually are, okay? And so one of the biggest truths that society claims is absolutely real, right? This is one of the claims that society makes. Society says, I am the product of my circumstance. What society says is that because this thing happened to me, this is the reason why I am the way that I am. And so society's current way of thinking wants us to believe that the events control our lives and our environments shape who we are today. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Society wants us to believe that events control our lives, the events that happen to us, and that the environment around us is what shapes who we are today. And here's the thing. I am here to tell you today, inside of this training, which is going to be the big daddy of all the trainings, I'm here to tell you that no greater lie has ever been told. No greater lie has ever been told. And just to prove it to you, let's go ahead and give you a couple examples here about why this is a massive lie that society continues to perpetuate, okay? Let's talk about the same circumstance, different reality, okay? If it were true that the events of our lives, our past, our environments are what shaped us to who we are today, then how can it be that two people who experience the exact same events in their life have completely different outcomes? They have completely different experiences, right? We touched on this a little bit when we talked about in problem number 2. We talked about who you are when you do the actions makes the difference in the results that you get. But in this training, what we're going to do is we're going to actually explore this concept a little bit further. And you're going to start to really see why this training in this module is in this program and the way that it's structured, is because this is so absolutely critical. Nobody in education talks about this. Nobody in any of the trainings talks about this. They try to give you the tactics, and we're going to give you the tactics. Don't worry, the tactics are coming. They try to give you the tactics, but as a result, so many people are unable to be successful, right? And so you want to make sure that you are somebody who sees the same results that so many people in this program see who are successful, right? And so that's why it's so important for you to understand this. And so let me give you an example here that is going to really illustrate this at a very high level. And so the title of this is called The Sons of a Monster, okay? And so my question to you is, what happens to the children of someone who their entire life as a father, they were bitter, cruel, an alcoholic, a drug addict, right? Someone who tried to kill themselves many times, someone who abuses their children, someone who stole and raped people in their lives, someone who is serving a life sentence for murdering a store cashier. And when they asked him, hey, why'd you kill the store cashier? He said, that guy got in my way, right? And so what happens to the children of someone like that? Well, in an example here, this monster, there's a historical account here, this monster had 2 sons, okay? And son number 1, when asked, hey, what happened? What ended up happening in your life, right? For son number 1, he actually grew up. Let me go ahead and change this over here. For son number 1, he grew up just to be like his dad, right? He was a drug addict. He lived his life stealing and threatening other people. He ended up in jail for murder as well. But son number 2 has a very different story, right? Son number 2 has 3 kids, a happy marriage. He appears to be living a really awesome life. He's a regional manager at a store. He's physically fit, has no addictions to drug or alcohol, right? So how could it be that these 2 men turn out completely different, even though they grew up virtually in the exact same environment, right? And so when asked individually in this exact story, why did your life turn out the way that it did? They both had the exact same answer. What else could I have become having grown up with a father like that? What else could I have become having grown up with a father like that? They had different meanings about what their childhood meant. And yet, society continues to tell us, hey, there's only one reality, there's only one truth, right? The events of your life, the events of your past, your environment is going to shape who we are today. That's what society says. And yet this story, and so many stories like it, say otherwise, right? Here's another one that I got for you. 2 women became 70, okay? 2 women turned 70. And yet each one takes a different meaning to that event, right? The first woman, she knows, hey, for sure, my life is coming to an end, right? I've lived 7 decades. And, that just means that my bodies must be breaking down for sure. And so as a result of me turning 70, I'm going to start winding down my life. The second woman, though, decides that what a person is capable of at any age is only dependent on what they believe to be true. And so instead, the second woman decides, you know what? I think that an awesome hobby for me to go ahead and take up is mountain climbing. Okay. And so the second woman, at the age of 70, she starts mountain climbing and she devotes herself to that hobby for the next 25 years. And then 25 years later, Hulda Crooks becomes the oldest woman to climb all 12,000 feet of Mount Fuji. And yet, society insists the events of our lives, our past and our environment shape who we are today. No greater lie has ever been told, okay? Because this is what I want you to understand. This is the very important point that I'm trying to make here. It is not the events of our lives that shape us, but instead it is our beliefs as to what those events mean. I'm going to say that again. It is not the events of our lives that shape us, but our beliefs about what those events mean. And so this is the problem with society's way of thinking about reality. And this is exactly what we're going to go ahead and destroy in this training, because this is what's going to free you and allow you to be able to create whatever reality you want. And so we're going to break this problem today, the false belief of reality inside of this training, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about the second part here, which is the power of belief. And so just like I said I was going to go ahead and do, is I'm going to go ahead and let you know that we just finished the first section, which was what society says about reality, okay? And so 1 down, 5 more to go. We're going to go ahead and talk about the power of belief next. Again, stick with me. Like I said, I'm going to be saying this over and over and over again. I know this training is going to be a little bit longer, but stick with me part by part. We're going to get through it, and it's really going to open your eyes in a major, major, major way. Okay, so the second part here we're going to talk about is the power of belief. The power of belief, okay? And so the thing is that what people who are under the spell of society's current way of thinking don't understand is that it's never the environment of the events it's never the environment or the events in our lives that shape who we are today or who we are going to become tomorrow. Instead, it is the meaning that we attach to those events and how we interpret them, okay? It is our beliefs that make up the stories that we tell ourselves about the world, about the circumstances, about the events, about our past. Everything that we tell ourselves as a story, that is what actually shapes who we become, right? Beliefs about what we have about the world are what makes the difference between someone having an awesome life of joy and contribution versus somebody having a miserable life of devastation, right? It's the beliefs and the stories that we tell ourselves, aka the beliefs, that cause some individuals to become heroes while others continue to live lives of quiet desperation, just wishing and wanting. They are the stories that we tell ourselves about our relationships, about our past, about our future, right? The infinite number of other topics. It's all about the beliefs. It's all about the stories that we tell ourselves. These are what we call beliefs. And to go ahead and illustrate to you the power of belief and to illustrate for you the power of the stories that we tell ourselves, I want to ask you a question. Have you heard of the story of the 4-minute mile? This is a very, very, very famous story. I'm telling you, you're probably going to hear it as you go down this path of personal development later on in your life. You're going to hear more about it. And I want you to be able to hear it here first if you haven't heard about it before. So the story of the 4-minute mile. For thousands of years, basically, people have been trying to run a 4-minute mile, which is a mile in under 4 minutes, okay? And so people had the belief that it was literally impossible to run a 4-minute mile. Like, I'm telling you, like the Romans and the Chinese would literally attach people and men to horses in order to get them to run faster, and yet they were still unable to get people to run a 4-minute mile. Like, that's how much people thought that it was impossible to be able to run a 4-minute mile. And then something insane happened. One day in 1954, a man by the name of Roger Bannister broke what people consider to be impossible. He ran a 4-minute mile. Okay? So he's the first man in the history of mankind who ever ran a 4-minute mile. Okay? And so the crazy thing about this, here's the crazy thing about this. Within 1 year of Roger running that 4-minute mile, 37 other people also ran a 4-minute mile. The year after that, 300 people ran a 4-minute mile. Today, high schoolers run 4-minute miles. So the question is, how could it be that for thousands of years, humans were never able to run 4-minute miles? And then all of a sudden, right, literally science thought it was impossible. Nobody can do it, right? All civilizations thought it was impossible. And then all of a sudden, now there are teenagers who are in high school who run 4-minute miles. The answer to that is belief. Once that mental barrier had been broken, once everyone knew that it was possible, once everybody broke the story that they were telling themselves, all of a sudden reality shifted and so many others could do it as well. That, my friends, is the power of belief, okay? And not only that, this also goes into something called the placebo effect. You might have heard about it before. If you haven't, the placebo effect is basically when a fake treatment, right? Typically they give some people like a sugar pill. It looks like a real pill, but it's a sugar pill. It's basically when that can heal and make people better simply because of the fact that they believe it will. Right? Placebo effects have been documented in being able to treat conditions from Parkinson's disease to irritable bowel syndrome, like literally everything under the sun. One of the strongest responses has come from people who are in depression studies, right? They take a placebo, and because they believe that it is an actual antidepressant, it actually gets them to feel better. And the crazy thing is you don't even have to be sick in order to experience the benefits of the placebo effect, right? In one of the studies in the University of Glasgow, researchers told 15 runners that they were being administered doping drugs, right? They were given drugs to be able to run in a race. And then the runners actually ran faster because they believed that the doping drugs were in their system, even though what they were actually given was just water saline injections. How crazy is that? That is the power of belief. And then the opposite of the placebo effect is something called the nocebo effect. And the nocebo effect is basically when somebody believes that something negative is going to happen to them, that they believe that what they've taken has some negative side effect to it. And then all of a sudden they start to feel them inside of their body. Here's a really crazy one. Here's a really crazy documented study. This is actually documented in the Southern Medicine Journal in 1992, where a doctor told a patient that they had been diagnosed with esophageal cancer and they only had 3 months to live. That man actually didn't even end up living 3 months. He actually ended up dying in just a few weeks. And then the crazy thing about it, when the autopsy was done, it revealed that there was actually a misdiagnosis. There was actually zero evidence of cancer found in his esophagus or anywhere in his body. And he died, apparently, because he believed that he was going to die. How insane is that, right? The doctor later said, hey, I thought he had cancer. He thought he had cancer. Everyone around him thought he had cancer. And so as a result, he died because of the nocebo effect, as a result of his belief that he had cancer. This is the power of belief, right? If we really want to be able to direct our lives, if we really want to be able to create the life that we want, we really need to have a conversation about taking control consciously of our beliefs, okay? And really, in order to do that, we have to understand what a belief is and how they are formed, so that way we can really start to be able to control and consciously decide our beliefs as well, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and talk about what is a belief. So obviously, like we've talked about, you can see how important these are in our world, right? And yet, society's current way of thinking doesn't even talk about it. They don't even know what it is, right? And the thing is that you are not born with any beliefs. You're not born with any beliefs. Imagine a baby, right? A baby doesn't have any beliefs about the world, right? Every single belief, even the beliefs that you have around yourself, all of them are learned and conditioned into you through experience, okay? But then the question is, well, what is a belief anyways? Like, how is it created? And so to really understand how a belief is created and what exactly a belief is, what I need to do here for a moment is I need to talk to you about how the brain works, okay? And again, this is another part that we've gone ahead and accomplished here, right? We've talked about what society says about reality. We've talked about the power of belief and literally how belief can literally end your life. That's how powerful it is. And so now we are in section number 3, which is how the brain works, okay? So awesome. We've gotten through 2. We only got 4 more to go. So stick with me. I know we're going to really get into this, but this is going to be very transformational for you, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about how the brain works. Now, the human brain is one of the most complicated structures on the planet, okay? And this topic is not a neuroanatomy, neuroscience class, and it can get very complicated very quickly. So what I've done is literally over the last few years, spending hundreds and hundreds of hours, I've really learned how to simplify this in a way that is practical. I'm not going to go super theoretical on you, but it's going to really be practical for you. So that way, if you are patient with me, I promise you this understanding of the brain that we're about to get into right now, it's going to literally allow you to get anything that you want out of life. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. My first question that I have for you is, what do you use in order to see things? What do you use in order to hear things? What do you use in order to touch things, smell things, and taste things? What do you use, right? Obviously, you're telling me, hey, you know what I use is I use my nose, I use my ears, I use my eyes, my tongue, right? My skin, my hands, whatever that might be, in order to really interact with the world, okay? That's what you're telling me, right? But here's the thing. If you say, hey, I hear with my ears, right? I smell with my nose, I see with my eyes, you're actually wrong. Because you don't actually see, hear, taste, smell, and feel from these 5 areas, right? These 5, your eyes, your tongue, your nose, your hands, all of these things are actually sensory organs, and all they do is they really just only provide input. Okay? What they're doing is that you're actually providing that input to your brain, and then the actual smelling, the actual seeing, the actual tasting, the actual feeling, all of that actually happens where? It happens in your brain. Think about that for a second. When you are smelling, is the smelling coming from your nose? No, it's coming from your brain. The nose is just the tool by which is feeding the information to the brain, right? When you feel something, when you taste something, all of those are just input organs, sensory organs that provide that information over to your brain, okay? And your sensory organs are really just one way in which your brain can get input from. Because there are 2 other ways that your brain can get input from as well. The first one is obviously the sensory organs that we talked about, but your brain can also get input from memory, and it can also get input from imagination. And let me go ahead and give you an example to really prove that to be true, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about lemons. Lemons, everyone's favorite fruit. I think lemons are a fruit. What I want you to do for a second is I want you to close your eyes and I want you to picture a lemon. Okay, I want you to see in your mind the lemon's glossy skin. I want you to hold that lemon in your hands. I want you to feel the ridges on that lemon, right? I want you to imagine for a second slicing that lemon. I want you to watch the juice jump out from that lemon as you cut through its skin, okay? And I want you to now imagine putting a wedge of lemon into your mouth, right? Your lips might feel a little bit of a sting on contact, right? You might feel a citrus on your tongue. What you're experiencing there, as I speak about lemons, you are experiencing the sensation of actually holding and tasting a lemon, right? And so as you can see, you can actually get sensory information and sensory input into your brain from imagination as well as memory, right? A lot of times if you go ahead and experience a memory from years ago, you actually experience what it felt like to go through there. Well, you didn't feel that with your hands. You didn't taste that with your tongue. You didn't smell that with your nose, and yet you still continued to feel those things, right? You still continue to experience those things. And so as a result, we can see here that the brain is actually getting information from these 3 places. These are the only 3 places that your brain can get information from your sensory organs, from your memories, and from your imagination, okay? These are the only 3 places that the brain can get information about reality. Think about that for a second. Your brain, it's sitting in your head. It has no access to the world directly. It just isn't wired that way. The only way that it gets information from the world and what's happening in the world and what's happening externally is through these 3 places. Okay? So you get it from your sensory organs, you get it from your memory, and from your imagination. Those are the only 3 sources in which the brain can get information. Like the brain can't get information directly from reality. It has to get it from these 3 sources. Okay? And so it can only receive information about real world reality through these 3 information sources. Okay? Now, I know it sounds a little bit like, this is kind of abstract that we're talking about here, but you'll see how really all of this connects here in a second, and it's going to be really, really, really cool. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at the problem with these 3 information sources. The problem that exists with these 3 information sources, the sensory organs, memory, and imagination, is that they're limited. They do not actually experience reality as reality actually is. You don't believe me? Let me go ahead and give you a couple examples. And this is going to be really cool. It's a fun activity. If you need to pause the training as we talk about these activities to really take it in, it's going to be really cool. Maybe even if you want to get your family involved with this, it's pretty cool. Let's look at the first one, okay? I'm going to go ahead and prove to you that your sensory inputs, your memory, your imagination, and your sensory organs don't actually experience reality directly. They're limited. So you can see here on the screen right now, there is a picture of a dress, okay? My question to you is, what color is the dress? There are people like myself who swear that what color the dress is it's blue and black. There are people like Coach Malik. Coach Malik, when he sees this, he sees a gold and white dress. My question to you is, what color do you see the dress to be? Some people see this dress as blue and black. Some people see this dress as gold and white. What color do you see? And the crazy thing about this is really, really crazy. The difference in why people see this dress as different colors actually has to do with the brain, the assumption that the brain is making on what type of light the dress is taken, the picture is taken in. So those who spend a lot of time at night, maybe who are a little bit more nocturnal, night owls kind of people, right? They assume that the dress's picture is taken in indoor lighting. And indoor lighting, is a little bit more yellow. And so as a result, those people see the dress as blue and black. And those people who are more like morning people, those people who are more like spend more of their life in the daylight, those people actually see white and gold because their brain assumes that this picture is taken in daylight, which is white light. How crazy is that? Our brain literally fills in the color based on our assumption of the lighting. Okay, here's another one for you. I'm gonna go quicker through these. Here's a picture. What do you see? Do you see a duck or a bunny? What do you see? You can pause it, take a look. Both of them are there. Which one do you see? Here's another one I got for you. Okay, in this picture, do you see an old woman or do you see a young woman? Right? The crazy thing about these images is that we're literally looking at the same input, right? Our eyes are looking at the same image, but two people have see completely different things depending on who you are. You see something completely different. How insane is that? And so if the brain was interacting with real world reality directly, then we would see everything how it is. However, because the brain is having to get information about real world reality through those three areas, the sensory organs, the memory, and imagination, we're limited on what we can actually bring in and process with our brains. Okay, here's another really cool one, and this is going to be the last one here, is triangles. How many triangles do you see inside of this picture that I'm showing on the screen right now? Right? Do you see the black one? Do you see the white triangle? Well, here's the crazy part about this. There are actually no triangles at all inside of this picture. The Pac-Man shapes that you see, what they're doing is they're actually giving the impression that there are triangles inside of this picture. And then all of a sudden, our brain fills in and guesses that the triangles should be there because of the fact that the brain is so used to seeing triangles. Our brains only need the assumption or the suggestion that triangles exist there, which is implied by the Pac-Man corners, and then boom, our brain literally fills in the rest of the picture with our minds, even though it's not actually there. How crazy is that? Right? How crazy is that? And so here's the takeaway from this. Okay, Yasin, what's the takeaway? Why does all of this matter? What we're realizing is that, as you can see, all of these experiences, right? When you look at all the different pictures that you see, all of these are actually created by the brain. Okay? They don't actually exist in reality. What the brain is doing, because it has limited information from the three sources, from the sensory organs, from your imagination, from the memory, right? Your memories aren't complete. You don't remember exactly how things were. You don't imagine exactly how things are going to be, right? Because it has limited information, what the brain does is it guesses on what it should actually be like, what the experience should actually be like, and it fills in the rest of the information, okay? So through these input sources, our brain, what it's doing is it's constantly creating mental images for everything. Creating images for objects, colors, people, concepts. It's not actually experiencing the thing in actuality because it's limited. It's creating a mental image for those things. And so the world that we experience that is out there is actually a reconstruction of reality that is built inside of our heads via mental images. Okay, so this is kind of like how it works, right? You walk into a room and what your brain does is it predicts what the scene should look like, what the sounds should be, what it should feel like. And then what it does, it creates a mental image of everything that is in the room. And that is what we actually experience. So therefore, what we experience as reality is not actually reality, but it is in fact a reconstruction of reality as told by our brain. Okay? So literally everything that you are sensing, okay? Everything that you think that you are sensing, your brain is not actually directly experiencing any of it. The brain has no ability to, right? Like we talked about, your brain is not wired to experience anything directly. It has to get information from those three sources, okay? And so as a result, it's just not wired to experience reality directly, period. It's kind of like our brain is creating a movie that it is basically filming, editing, and showing us in real time. Okay? And then the crazy thing about this is that everyone's brain is playing a different movie for them, and the main character in their specific movie, in their own movie, is a character by the name of me. And so this is what we just explained here. We simplified neuroanatomy and psychology, right? What we just explained here is the reason why some people might hear or see things that others don't. It's the reason why some people might remember things differently than others might remember them, okay? Because what's happening is that you're not actually seeing reality, right? You're not actually remembering reality. You're not actually imagining reality. But instead, our brains are creating a reconstruction of what it thinks it saw, heard, smelled, tasted, felt, remembered, and imagined. This is the reason why two people could both experience the exact same event, and then 10 years later, when asked to describe it, could literally describe two completely different things happening. This is the reason. It's because your brain is reconstructing reality and is not able to see real world reality directly. So once you understand that everybody is living in their own reality, you start to see that you actually have the power to be the main character in your movie and shape the movie in whatever direction you want. This, my friends, is the grand illusion of life, okay? The grand illusion of life is that our minds think that they have the capacity to understand reality. That's the trick, right? That's the trick that our brains literally forget over and over and over again. We forget this fact. Everything that I just talked to you about right now, that is the fact that we forget so many times, and that is the grand illusion, is because our brains forget that we're not actually experiencing reality and real world reality. We're reconstructing reality in our brains, and I just proved it to you through neuroscience. Mind blown, right? And so I'm telling you, nobody talks about this. Like nobody talks about this. And I know this is a lot to take in, okay? I promise you can literally go to the internet if you'd like, and you can fact check me on this, okay? You can look up all of this yourself. This is literally how the brain works. And yet no one, and I mean no one, nobody talks about this, right? Have you ever learned this in school? Have your parents ever talked to you about this? And yet the brain is literally what we use everything for, right? It's literally what we use in order to be able to create our life, in order to sustain ourselves, in order to do everything in life, we use our brain. And so it's insane how society and society's current way of thinking has failed to even talk to people about how it works. Okay, Yasin, you might be saying, right? Thanks for the random lesson about how the brain works, right? This program is about money and making money and really understanding how to think. What does this have to do with anything, right? So again, I'm going to say this over and over again, is stick with me here, because what we're about to do here right now is we're about to connect this, and we're about to blow your brain about how all of this relates to transforming your life, okay? Because now that you understand how the brain works, what I want you to understand is the practical implications of this on top of that, okay? Is that as you are going through life, you are coming across people, objects, and concepts that you've never seen before. And so now that you understand how the brain works, what the brain is doing is it's trying to learn about these new things. And what it's doing is it's creating predictions and storing them for further and future use, okay? And so the brain, it's, again, not able to see reality for reality. And so what it's doing is it's creating these mental images as it experiences something, and it stores these mental images for future use, okay? These predictions that it stores are stored as generalizations about what this new thing is or what this new thing means, okay? And now I went ahead and highlighted this for you so that way you can see how important this is, okay? These generalizations that our brain is storing about everything that is around us, and they're stored in our minds as mental images, these are what we call beliefs, okay? And so beliefs are generalizations that we have made about everything in the world based on our past experiences. The mental images that we created when we experienced that thing based on our past experiences, they get stored in our brain, and that's what we call beliefs, okay? They are our beliefs about how something is according to our brain's constructed reality, okay? And why is it belief instead of the actual thing? Because of what we just talked about, right? Because of what we spoke about earlier. The brain has no direct access to real world reality, and so it reconstructs the world around what it believes, aka guesses, what the world is from the limited information that it received, okay? And so our beliefs represent our stored, reconstructed mental images of what something is. Literally in our brain, everything receives a belief attached to it. Everything. You experience something new, you get a belief around it. And so really at the end of the day, what beliefs are mental images, their judgments, their stories, their meanings, their generalizations, assumptions, interpretations, superstitions, and associations, right? These are just all synonyms for the same thing, which is beliefs, right? That our brain has stored about everything in the world. Our brain has stored about ourselves. What are the beliefs that we have about our relationships, our beliefs about our past, our future, right? Our judgments that we've made about an infinite number of things in the world. This is literally how the brain works. Without beliefs, our brains would simply not be able to function. At the very core of how our brains function is through the process of creating beliefs about everything around us. Okay, cool. Well, why is this important? This is important because you see the world through what we call the lens of belief. And I'm going to talk to you about what that means here right now. And with that being said, we've gone ahead and completed the third section of this training, which is how the brain works. Okay, and so now we've gone ahead and completed 3 of them. We only got 3 sections left. We're going to talk about the world through the lens of belief. So again, stick with me here. You're doing an awesome job. You're doing a phenomenal job. And this is literally going to change your entire life. This training right here is absolutely paramount to that, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about what it means when we talk about the world through the lens of belief, okay? It is through the beliefs that we have that we see the world all around us, okay? And what we're doing is when we are experiencing the world around us, what we're doing is we are actually reacting to the mental images that our brain has created and stored as beliefs, okay? Regardless of if that mental image, regardless of if that belief is true or not, okay? You act and feel not according to what things are actually and really like, but according to the belief that your mind holds about what they are like. An example to kind of illustrate this, right? If you're taking a hike through the woods and you believe that you saw a bear, your entire body is going to react accordingly, right? Your heart rate is going to go through the roof. Your palms are going to start to sweat. Your adrenaline is going to spike, right? Your fight or flight response is going to get triggered. And this is true, right? How your body's reacting to this. This is going to be true regardless of if you actually saw a bear or if what you actually saw was a guy in a bear costume or maybe even just a large dog. Because you thought you saw a bear, because you believed that you saw a bear, your brain is going to react to that mental image or belief regardless of if it is true or not. This is how our brains see the entire world through the lens of belief, okay? That's the crazy part about this. Our beliefs are literally shaping our entire world. The brain is constantly creating these beliefs about the world on an ongoing basis without you even knowing, right? It's literally shaping every experience that you are having right now, even listening to my voice right now, about what it believes. And then along the way, we're also contributing actively by deciding what those events actually mean. And this is a very important part. Let me go ahead and emphasize this very clearly. We are contributing to our experience, to our beliefs, based on what we decide these things mean. So your entire being, your entire experience of life and reality is going to be completely different if you think that God is punishing you in a specific event, right? And that's why something is happening, versus if you think that God is challenging you, right? Punishing versus challenging. Or maybe you think that, this has nothing to do with God at all. And the reason I'm experiencing things is because I'm lazy. All 3 of these are going to have a different outcome, a different experience, all simply based on the meaning that you attributed to a circumstance or event, aka your belief that you ascribed to a certain event. So if you think that something is going to be easy and enjoyable, you will experience reality as such. If you think that something is going to be hard and difficult, you will experience reality as such. And so your belief is what is acting as the lens in which you are actually viewing all of reality, right? You might remember the 50-year-old man with red glasses, right? He has the red glasses on, and so he sees everything as red. And so the biggest portion that makes up your paradigm, right? We talked about what a paradigm was in the past. The biggest portion that makes up what your paradigm is your beliefs. This is why we call it a belief system. The paradigm is actually a collection of all of the beliefs that make up your belief system. All of those come together in order to create your paradigm. And so this entire module that we're talking about when we talk about shifting your paradigm, it's really about shifting your beliefs about certain topics, right? Because you have certain beliefs about yourself, about the world, about the people around you, right? And you behave as though all of those beliefs are true. You behave as if they are reality, even though, as we went ahead and showed earlier, that might not always be the case. And so this entire time when we're talking about, hey, society's current paradigm is this, society's current paradigm is that, what we're talking about is society's current paradigm is actually a collection of beliefs that are taught to us by society about XYZ. Our beliefs about ourselves, about time, about money, about anything. That is what a paradigm actually is, the collection of beliefs that society continues to hand down, pass through people over and over and over again. And so what society's current paradigm does is that it insists, and this is why it's completely wrong, that's why it's a major problem, is that it insists that there is only one truth and there is only one reality. And yet we've gone ahead and clearly, through scientific evidence, I went ahead and showed you that this is not true, right? Society's current paradigm believes in something that is called objective model of reality. And the objective model of reality states that I experience life exactly how it is, okay? If I get cheated, that means that I got cheated. No other fact about it. That is the truth, right? If I am bad with money, it's because of my upbringing. That is the truth. That is the fact. That is exactly how it is, right? So society's current paradigm says that the events in my life, my past and my environment shape who I am. There was no other way to see them. What is the alternative to this? The alternative to this is what we talk about in the transformation paradigm. And the transformation paradigm believes in what we call a constructed model of reality. And the constructed model of reality states that my thoughts and beliefs about things are what is actually creating my experience of reality, okay? Based on how the brain works, there are unlimited possibilities for reality inside of the constructed model of reality because every human being is experiencing the world differently and attaching and associating different meaning to everything that they are going through. And so therefore, they are the ones who are reconstructing reality in their brains differently compared to the person that is next to them. And so this is what society's paradigm says, that there's only one model of reality, that there's an objective model of reality. And then the transformation paradigm believes in what is called the constructed model of reality that we went ahead and proved, and we showed why that is actually the case. Okay. Now, one thing I want to go ahead and emphasize here, a lot of times when students first learn about beliefs, they start to think that, okay, you know what? Beliefs are bad, right? Or beliefs are good. Or, in general, I shouldn't have any beliefs. Well, like we already talked about, it's impossible for you not to have any beliefs because beliefs are how your brain works. And the truth is that a belief can be created about anything, right? Because beliefs are a part of how the brain works, it's impossible for a belief to actually be good or bad. Right? The question is not, is the belief good or bad? The question is the belief actually serving me? Right? And let me go ahead and give you an example here to kind of illustrate this point. My question to you is, what is your belief? Are people good or are people bad? Right? You probably have enough experiences in your entire life, or maybe you've heard enough stories from other people that you could probably come up with the belief that, you know what? People are bad. People are rotten, right? All they want to do is really just take advantage of you as soon as they have the opportunity, right? I've heard this story. I've heard that story. This happened to me. This happened to me. This happened to me. Based off all of my past circumstances, I can create the belief that people are bad, right? And I'm sure you have plenty of experiences to give evidence to that, right? But you also have probably enough experiences to show that, you know what? People are actually good. People actually will care about them because people will actually care about other people. People will actually treat other people good. And in general, people are actually good. So the question is, which belief is true? Is it that people are good or is it that people are bad? Like, which one is it? The answer is neither, right? Neither belief is true because that's not what matters. The only thing that matters is what belief is more empowering to you. What belief is serving you, right? Because we can find evidence for anything. We can find evidence for any belief and we can back it up due to something called confirmation bias, which is what we're about to talk about next, right? But it's just a matter of what belief do we want to keep? What is the belief that is serving us to be able to get closer to our goals and closer to where we want to go, right? Because in the end, the only question that matters when it comes to beliefs is whether or not a belief is empowering us or it's disempowering us to where we want to go. That is the only question that matters. And so as a result, beliefs are neither good or bad. Beliefs are either empowering or disempowering depending on where you want to go, okay? Now, the thing that is important to understand about this is that beliefs can actually be strengthened. Beliefs have the ability to be weak or strong, okay? When we first experience something that is new, right, the generalization and the mental image, the belief that we store about that concept, that object, that person, whatever it might be, the belief about that is weak. And so what the brain does when we experience something new is that the brain starts looking for evidence and confirmation for what it believes to be actually true. And so as a result, what the brain does is it filters information according to what it believes to be true, okay? And this is what we call, in cognitive biases, this is what we call confirmation bias, okay? Confirmation bias is the process of the brain filtering information to confirm what it believes to be true. Here's a diagram to kind of show you what that looks like, right? Is we have our beliefs, and then we have the evidences and the facts that exist out there, right? And so confirmation bias is that we actually look for the middle ground here between, okay, what do we believe and what are the facts? That's actually the only thing that we actually see. And so the thing is that this confirmation bias, AKA, like we talked about, the filtration of information when we're looking for something, it's actually a function of the brain that is called the reticular activating system, the RAS. I want you to remember this. It's going to be something that we talk about regularly throughout this program in your journey of making 6+ figures, because the RAS is very, very, very important. And again, it's shocking to me why nobody talks about this, why nobody teaches this. And that's why it's so awesome that you're a part of this journey to be able to really learn about this, okay? So the RAS is the part of the brain that filters information. The RAS is like a missile guiding system. And what the RAS is doing is it's basically searching for exactly what we have told it to search for. Okay, when the RAS inside of your brain is programmed, and I'm going to give you a couple examples of that here in a second. When it's programmed, it's as if everything that we see is a nail because we have a hammer. And so with the RAS programmed, whatever you are looking for, you will find it. Whatever you are looking for, you will find it, okay? And so the part of the brain that allows this to happen, it's called the RAS. It's located inside of your brainstem. Okay, it's located inside of your brainstem. And obviously you have the cortex, the thalamus. Don't worry, you don't have to know any of this stuff. But the reticular activating system is a part of your brain. It's actually located in there, okay? You can see here there's a couple of descriptions that I've gone ahead and put for you about the RAS there, okay? And so what the RAS does is it really acts as the brain's gatekeeper. And what it does is it uses our beliefs in order to sift through incoming information and prioritize evidence that supports these beliefs. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of why it does this, why this is important, why it's so integral for us as humans to have an RAS, because we literally would be overwhelmed and overloaded with information if we didn't have an RAS. So I'm not going to go into that here, but just know that the RAS, that's the function that it does, and it's so important for that, okay? So in other words, with the RAS, we notice things only according to what we believe. And let me give you some examples to really hit this home, okay? This is typically the most common example that people will give when they do talk about the RAS and how it works, right? Have you ever noticed that, let's say, for example, you're like, you know what, I want to buy a new car. I'm going to buy a Toyota Camry, right? And then all of a sudden, when you're out and about, going around the world, you haven't bought the car yet, but you notice, man, there's a lot of Toyota Camrys on the road, right? Like, I didn't even notice that there were so many Toyota Camrys on the road. Right? Before you thought about buying a Toyota Camry, you hardly saw Toyota Camrys on the road. That is the RAS at work, right? The same thing is like if you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to buy a red car, or I'm going to buy a blue car. All of a sudden you start to notice like all the cars on the road are red. Like, what is going on? Right? That is the RAS at work. The RAS is what makes you feel as though the universe is sending you a message, when in reality, what's actually happening is that the brain is filtering information. The red cars were always there already. The Toyota Camrys are already on the road. You just didn't notice them before, and you notice them now because of the RAS, okay? Here's another example that I want to go ahead and give you is bad days, right? Another example is when you have a bad day. Let's say you start off the day and something negative happens, and you say, man, today's going to be a bad day, right? You tell yourself. And then all of a sudden, your brain starts to notice more and more negative things that are going on, right? You're like, man, I just can't get a break today. And the reason it feels like that is because now you've programmed your RAS to notice all the negative things, right? This is your RAS filtering all of the information in the world, looking for negative events because that's what the RAS was primed for. Okay? Here's another really good example to kind of hit this home for you, okay? Is that if you carry the belief that online programs are a scam, right? All these gurus out there are just really out there to take my money, right? Is that true? Is that not true? I'm sure you can find evidence for that to be true. I'm sure you can find evidence for that not to be true. But let's say that's the belief that you carried, okay? Then what your RAS does is it's going to be programmed to look for exactly that. So then the next time you purchase a program, all your RAS is doing is it's looking for, yeah, okay, fine, I was able to push myself to buy the program, but now the RAS is looking for examples for this to be true, right? And so whatever you are looking for, you will find it. All of a sudden you start to notice, man, this company, they didn't respond to my email in like 5 minutes. They must be a scam, right? They're out to get my money. That's all you start to notice, and that is a function of the RAS, right? And so all of these 3 examples are examples of the RAS at work, because what it does is it selectively sees only the parts of reality and ignores the other parts of reality that don't conform to our beliefs, okay? And so the thing is that once we have internalized the belief that we aren't pretty, that we aren't thin, that we're not smart, right? What our RAS will do is it's going to continue to look for the source of information that is going to confirm this. And this is how our beliefs get stronger and stronger and stronger because of the RAS. And so a belief that may not be strong yet, once it's fed into the RAS is going to get to work looking for evidence and confirmation for that belief to be true. And then over time, because it's now getting so much evidence and confirmation, that belief becomes a conviction. We truly believe that to be true, right? We have so much evidence for it not to be true. How in the world could this not to be true? You're telling me this is not true. I've seen this over and over and over again. Well, it was probably just the RAS. It wasn't, not just probably, it was the RAS that was going to work and finding evidence for all of that, okay? And so those who follow society's current paradigm, what they don't realize that all of the evidences and confirmations that they've had about what they think reality is was not actually real world reality. What it was the work of the RAS searching for confirmation about their beliefs. And so with the RAS, whatever you are looking for, you will find it, even if it is not there. That's how insane this is. Even if it is not there, the RAS will find it. Okay? And so what the RAS does is the RAS creates what is called a mental feedback loop. Okay? It creates a feedback loop that creates exponential compounding that basically says, okay, hey, with the RAS, a belief has the power to go from a thought or an idea to quickly becoming conviction, because what happens is that, okay, you know what? I believe that online programs are all scams, okay? As a result, you're more likely to go ahead and experience that. And then when you experience that, it goes ahead and confirms that belief even more. And then the more you believe it, the more you notice it. The more you notice it, the more you believe it. And so quickly, this entire thing becomes a feedback loop that basically compounds with exponential compounding. That's how crazy this is, okay? And so every experience that we have, right, that we feed, every experience further feeds the belief, and every small belief further feeds the experience. And so this is why, I'm going to go ahead and hit this home. This is a summary of this entire part right here. This is why beliefs have the awesome potential to either create or destroy you, right? As long as you use them in order to serve you and not destroy you, okay? So with the RAS, what it does is it can create a virtuous cycle of either positivity that works for you as your best friend, or it can create a vicious cycle of negativity that works against you as your worst enemy. With the RAS, whatever you are looking for, you will find it. So I want you to remember that nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that you give it. Remember that, okay? So make sure that you are consciously choosing the meanings that are in most alignment with where you want to go in life. Because if you choose the wrong meanings and you start looking for the wrong meanings, that's going to feed into what we talked about up here, which is what we call your belief confirmation cycle. When you choose the wrong meaning, when you choose to believe in the wrong thing, that's what you experience. And then when you experience that, that is exactly what you believe. And so you want to make sure that you are careful about the meanings that you are choosing and what meanings are happening inside of your life, okay? So just remember this. Your external world is a reflection of your internal reality with just a delay. Your internal world reflects into your external reality with a delay. So be patient, maintain your eagerness and your firmness of your choice, it will come. Most people, they use external reality to dictate their internal world. And as a result, they keep getting the same, right? But when you do the opposite, you start to become unstoppable because you know that you can create whatever reality you want for yourself because it's all just a matter of taking baby steps to be able to change that belief. And then once you change that belief, that's what you experience. When you experience it, becomes a belief and it starts to become conviction. And obviously later on inside of this module, we're going to have a lot more trainings to go into exactly what that's going to look like and exactly how you can make that practical for yourself. How insane is this? Like literally what we're talking about is not some mojo jojo, magical, mystical wizardry. Like I'm not talking about some like universal mystical thing that's happening here. What we're talking about here is literally facts. We're talking about things that are actually in your brain. We're talking about science. We're talking about biology. And literally nobody talks about this. Like I don't know how anybody can make money. I don't know how anybody can have a successful relationship. I don't know how anybody can do anything in life and achieve anything in life without knowing this stuff, right? And not just this stuff that's on the screen right now about the RAS, but also everything we talked about how the brain works. Like this stuff is absolutely critical. And yet nobody talks about this. This stuff is life-changing. What we're talking about is opening your eyes to what is inside your actual brain. We're talking about the science of actually how to be able to achieve what you want by understanding what reality actually is, what your brain actually does, how it actually processes information. And guess what? It's a hell of a lot easier to actually achieve your goals and what you want in life when you work with your brain rather than try to fight against it. And this is why what we're talking about here is so important. And this is why I keep saying, guys, like, I know this training is going to be a little bit longer. I know this training is going to be something that's a little bit more conceptual. It's a little bit more abstract. But I mean, like when you understand what the RAS does and you understand the function of the RAS, when you understand how the brain works, this stuff is so life-changing. And so wouldn't you want to be willing to dedicate 1 or 2 hours in order for you to learn all this stuff? Of course you would. It's going to change your life. And so that's why it's so important. This is why it's so absolutely critical. And so that's why the next thing I want to talk to you about is specifically about identity beliefs, okay? And I want to talk to you about what it means to cast votes when you start talking about shifting identity beliefs, okay? Because this entire thing that we're talking about also includes beliefs that you have about yourself, okay? And beliefs that you have about yourself is just another word to say your identity, okay? And so when we talked about identity in previous trainings, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about beliefs about yourself. That's why now you understand why this training is the one that holds everything together, is because of the fact that what your identity is, it's really just your beliefs about yourself, right? And so whatever your identity is right now, you only believe that that is your identity because you have proof for it. You only believe that that is your identity because you have proof for it, right? If you go to church or the mosque or the synagogue, right, every Sunday or Friday or Saturday or whatever, for 20 years in a row, then you have evidence that you are somebody who is religious, right? If you study biology for 1 hour every single night and you do that without fail, then you have evidence that you are studious, right? If you go to the gym, even when it's snowing outside, then you have evidence that you're somebody who is committed to fitness, right? So the reason why you have your identity is because you have proof from that, and that proof came from your RAS, right? And so every action that you take, every habit that you have, all of that is a vote for the type of person that you wish to become, right? And it's no single instance, no single event, no single of doing of the action that's going to transform your belief. But what ends up happening is that as the votes stack up, so does the evidence of your new identity, right? And so the opposite is also true. And this is why it's a double-edged sword, is because every time you choose an action that is not according to who you want to become, every time you choose a bad habit, it's a vote for that identity as well. Even if that's not what you actually want to become, even if that's not the identity that you want to have, right? And so that's why new identities require new evidence. If you keep casting the same votes that you've always casted, then you're going to continue to get the same results that you've always gotten, because if nothing changes, nothing is going to change, okay? And so this is literally how your identity became to be. And this is exactly how you're going to be able to create a new identity for yourself using the RAS and using the power of belief and really stacking these beliefs up in a way that's going to go ahead and create your new identity. It's going to create the identity of for whom somebody making money is effortless. It's going to create the identity that is going to allow you to be able to do whatever it is that you want in life. And so the actual final answer for who you are, right? Who you are is actually just the summation, is the bucket of all of the beliefs that have been conditioned and mentally programmed into you through your environment, through memory, through the imagination over the course of your entire life, right? Remember the 3 sources of information that we talked about? All of the beliefs that you got as a result of the things that you saw, the things that you felt, your entire environment, all the things that you remember, all the things that you imagined over your entire life, all of the beliefs that came as a result of that process, that is who you are. And so this provides a whole new level of understanding to when we talked about in problem number 1, we talked about the big lie of identity. This is now you understand the science behind it. You understand the facts behind it. You understand, okay, hey, this is how the brain works. This is how my brain creates belief. This is how my brain creates generalizations and assumptions, right? And it does that because it's unable to actually see reality for reality. It's unable to see real world reality. It reconstructs reality in my brain through the information, through the limited information that it receives. And then it creates these beliefs about myself. It creates these beliefs about my environment. It creates these beliefs about people that may not actually be true, and yet I believe them to be true, and therefore they are my reality. How crazy is this? How insanely crazy is this, right? And now the other question that you might have is, how early do beliefs actually start forming? Right? How early do beliefs actually start forming? So because of the process of creating beliefs, like we talked about, is so integral to the learning and interacting process that we have with the world, we actually start creating beliefs as soon as we are born. This is the crazy part about this, right? Most people don't actually realize that most of the beliefs that you have specifically about yourself and the world around you were actually formed inside of your brain before the age of 7. 80% of human brain development actually happens before you even become 3 years old, even though we don't have any specific memories about those years. And so our experience, our reality of our entire life is massively and hugely shaped by the structure of our brains and how we function later on in life based off of the beliefs that we got before the age of 7. In some cases, before even the age of 3. Right? And so it's in those early years that we look to our parental figures, our role models, right, for clues on how we should actually interact with reality, how we should interact with the world. Because we don't know any of that. We were just born. And so what we start to do is we start to look at, okay, what are the beliefs that the people around us have, and how can we start to take those on internally, right? And so what happens is that a lot of times these small, consistent messages that we received from these parental figures that when we were growing up, they end up becoming internalized beliefs about who we are. Let me go ahead and give you a couple examples for this to really hit this home, because this is going to be like game changer for you. This is going to really blow your brain to really help you understand exactly how you ended up becoming who you are today and how you're really going to be able to develop and grow and who you're going to be able to become. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about the example of you're too sensitive. So a parental figure who growing up, right, your mom, your dad, grandma, whoever it might be, maybe they were themselves, overwhelmed and uncomfortable with their own emotions, right? They didn't know how to cope or regulate their own emotions. And so as a result, when their child shows emotions, they might say, hey, son, hey, daughter, you're too sensitive. Toughen up. Showing emotions is not good. And what they do is they go ahead and feed this belief into us. And so the belief that the child has about the world is that, showing emotions is bad, and certain areas of my identity should not be expressed. Certain areas of my emotions should not be expressed. And so what ends up happening for those men who are raised with this, and it contributes to toxic masculinity, is that oftentimes this is a very common problem with men who are told, hey, toughen up, emotions are bad. What they do is that men then interact with the world and have difficulty expressing the more softer sides of their personality simply because of the beliefs that they were given when they were growing up. How crazy is that, right? Maybe some of you, maybe you're nodding with me right now as you go through this to realize like, dang, that's me, right? Here's another one, right? You're so helpful, right? So a child, maybe when you're growing up, you had a couple siblings, maybe you're, the older sibling, and you might've been helping your mom take care of the younger siblings. And then the mother tells the child, hey, honey, thank you so much. You're so helpful. You're going to be such an amazing, great mother someday when you grow up. Right? And when the child hears that consistently enough, the child may develop the belief that, okay, when I care for others, I am loved. And therefore, I need to continue to care for others in order to be loved. I need to continue to care for others in order to be loved. And so what that manifests to in adulthood later on in life is that that person could feel selfish for taking care of themselves, right? They could literally never acknowledge their own needs, and instead they would always acknowledge the needs of others because of the fact that they have this belief that their mother told them, like, hey, I got love from my mom when I took care of others. So therefore, if I want to continue to be loved, I need to take care of others. And as soon as I stop taking care of others, I'm not going to be loved anymore. How crazy is that? All because of the consistent messaging that we got from our parental figures. So you see how this could have real world implications to how somebody acts and behaves in the real world? Maybe somebody burns themselves out. Maybe somebody doesn't take time for self-care. All because of the belief that they got somewhere early in their life. Now, obviously, there are other factors that shape our belief system as well, right? It's not only our parental figures that play a role in this early age, right? Factors like our education system, our peers, our society as a whole, all of them really play a major role in shaping our belief system at those early ages when we're learning so much about how the brain works, right? And so this is where so many people, I cannot tell you, especially if you're a parent, if you're somebody who's in an authority figure, right? So many people pour into their children, into children as a whole, beliefs about the world and how the world works, not realizing how much damage that they are doing because they're pouring in false beliefs about how the world works. They're pouring in limiting beliefs about how the world works, right? And you're literally conditioning and programming the child in the same way that you and I were conditioned and programmed by society and our parental figures as well. Okay? And so the thing is, then, the reason why this is so dangerous is because most people they don't even know what beliefs are. They don't know how to identify their beliefs. They don't know how to change their beliefs. And so most people end up becoming enslaved to their beliefs based on what somebody told them 10, 20 years ago, right? And then they continue to be enslaved by them for the rest of their life. Literally, people will people's life and death goes down to their beliefs. And they could be literally carrying a false belief until the day that they die. And so this is why going through this training that you're going through right now, what it does is that it breaks the cycle of generational ignorance about beliefs. This training that you are going in right now, okay, the training that you're going through right now, I know it's a little bit longer. I know I'm holding your attention on this. I know there's a lot of other things that you could be doing. But this training is so absolutely critical because what it is doing is it's breaking the generational ignorance in yours and my entire family, right? Generations go by and they don't even know that this thing of beliefs actually exists. They don't know how the brain actually works. And so as a result, they continue the cycle of perpetuating and continuing to, like an inheritance, bringing down beliefs that don't serve them. They don't allow them to have the wealth that they want. They don't allow them to have the health that they want. Literally, people will have generational poverty because of the beliefs that they have around money. Literally, people will have generational obesity because of the beliefs that they have around food, around how to eat. Literally, people will have generational divorces, terrible relationships. They will literally not be able to carry a relationship because of the beliefs that they have been programmed through the generations. The same thing goes for your connection to something greater, right? Your happiness and your contentment in life. All of this is because of the generational ignorance that exists about the existence and what beliefs actually are. This is how powerful this training that you are going through right now is because it's breaking that ignorance. Because when you go through this training, all of a sudden you realize, dang, there is this thing called beliefs. This is how our brain works. Reality is not actually how reality is. And when you start to talk to your friends, your family, everyone around you, this concept that we are talking about inside of this training by itself has the power to transform people's lives. Even if you never talk to them about what they need to do in their health, wealth, relationships, or connection to something greater. Even if you don't do any of that, this training itself will open people's eyes to help them realize, like, dang, my beliefs are causing me to not be able to have the life that I want. This is how powerful all of this is, okay? And so the last thing I want to go ahead and touch base on inside of this specific part is the fact that you are not your beliefs, right? We've talked about, oh man, Yasin, my beliefs were imprinted on me when I was younger. I was conditioned, right? I'm going to be stuck with like this for the rest of my life. This thinking means that if you are thinking, man, okay, if I was programmed like this when I was younger, that means that I'm going to be miserable. Well, if you're thinking that, that means that you're going to fall back into society's current paradigm of thinking, right? Because remember, you're not static. Remember, you're always becoming. It's not who I am, it's who I'm becoming. And so you get to choose who you become, because at the end of the day, reality is just a belief, and beliefs can be changed, okay? Now, the thing is that your beliefs weren't formed overnight. They are going to take conscious dedication and persistence to be changed, but at the end of the day, I'm telling you right now, they can be changed. Neuroplasticity does exist. It means your brain can be rewired. It can be reprogrammed. Okay? Now, this in the beginning, when people first learn about beliefs, it's very difficult for them to realize that, oh man, okay, beliefs can actually be changed. But the truth is that the more you learn about beliefs, and we still have a little bit of this training left to go, the more you learn about beliefs and how they're formed, the better over time you will begin to understand that you are not your beliefs. Yes, I know we practice our beliefs so many times, they feel literally ingrained. They feel like they are a part of us. They feel like they are reality. We have so much confirmation and so much evidence from our RAS that they're like, Yasin, I'm telling you, this is how it is. This is exactly how it is. But just remember, beliefs are just interpretations of reality. They are just our interpretations of reality, okay? And so as this fact settles in deeper and deeper for you, over time, you will learn to be able to selectively choose which beliefs you want to keep and which beliefs you want to leave behind. At the end of the day, we have the power to choose what beliefs we want to have, and this is the greatest power that human beings have, okay? We always have the power to choose, right? Maybe we are stuck. Maybe we're in a situation that, you know what? I can't change my external reality. I'm stuck in the job 9 to 5 that I have right now. I'm struggling to put food on the table. I can't just leave my situation right now. Yasin, I can't just change my external reality, right? I can't just leave my hometown and move somewhere else. I'm stuck where I'm at. Okay, that might be true. But the truth is that we still have the option to choose. And what can we choose? We can choose what those circumstances in the external reality mean to us. Okay? You could literally be stuck being a janitor for some reason, and yet you can still choose your response and meaning to that situation. You can literally choose your response and meaning to that situation. Let me go ahead and give you an example that really illustrates this and hits this home. There's a story of President John F. Kennedy. You probably heard of him. One night, he was actually visiting NASA. He had a meeting at NASA. And one night in 1962, late night, he came across a janitor who was mopping the floors. Okay. And the president, JFK, asked him, hey, Mr. Janitor, why the heck are you working so late? Like, man, it's late at night. You're out here working so late. And the janitor replied, hey, Mr. President, I am helping put a man on the moon. I am helping put a man on the moon. The janitor could have chosen to have the belief that he was only a janitor, right? I hate this job, right? This is a terrible job. I hate doing this. I'm stuck here, right? I have to do this job. But instead, the janitor chose to have a different meaning to his situation. In the same way, you get to choose every meaning to every circumstance that happens in your life. Just because everybody else in society hates Mondays doesn't mean you have to hate Mondays. Just because they have that belief that Mondays are terrible, why do you have to have that belief, right? You can choose to believe something different and have a different meaning to Mondays. You choose, you decide. It's completely up to you. And so this is why we are not our beliefs. We have the ability to choose. And just like we talked about, when you choose, you're stacking up those votes. And then over time, your beliefs start to change, okay? And so this is ultimately the challenge of beliefs. Challenge number 1, most people don't consciously decide or choose what they're gonna believe. Challenge number 2 is that many times our beliefs are based on misinterpretations of past experiences. And then challenge number 3 is that once we adopt a belief, a lot of times we forget that it's only an interpretation, assumption, or generalization and not actually reality. A lot of times we think that, no, that is reality because it's the RAS getting to work, making it feel and seem exactly like reality, okay? So as we're kind of closing out this training here, I wanna go ahead and give you some vocabulary terms and really go over some types and terms of belief. So this is gonna be the 5th section. So we're getting close. Hang in there with me. We're almost done here. 5th section over here is the types and terms of belief. And so there are different types of beliefs that are important for you to know. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight a couple of them that are going to serve you and help you along your journey in life. The first type of belief is what we call global beliefs. Global beliefs are the giant beliefs that we have about everything in our lives, right? Beliefs about our identities, about people, about work, about time, about money, about life itself, right? These are what we call our global beliefs, okay? And typically you can identify a global belief whenever it is, life is. right? Money is, right? People are, right? Work is. Like, you can usually identify it with these terms is, am, and are. And we don't just have beliefs about ourselves, we have beliefs about everything around us, right? So life is, people are, money is. And so as you can imagine, if you have a massive generalization about literally all people and all life, it's probably going to shape and color every single aspect of our lives, right? And so global beliefs are the big ones. Those definitely are very, very, very important. They are very important to be aware of as well, and what your global beliefs are. The second type of belief that I want to go ahead and bring your attention to is the identity beliefs, okay? And sometimes some people refer to these as core beliefs. And core beliefs, identity beliefs, are our deepest perceptions about our identity, right? These are the ones that are installed in our subconscious a lot of times before the age of 7. And so these are the stories that go along with, like, hey, I'm smart, I'm personable, I'm outgoing, I'm introverted, or I'm not good at math, I'm a night owl, I'm a loner, right? All of those are providing the foundations of our personality. And so, like we talked about in previous trainings, right? We talked about identity statements, right? Beliefs that statements that you make that are like, hey, I am not good at math. I am this. I am scared. I am not that type of person. I am not somebody who can do sales. I am not somebody who da 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 da. All of those are under the umbrella of identity beliefs. Also, another very, very important type of belief to be aware of. Now, real quick, I just want to go through a couple important terms about belief as you start to go into the world of personal development and start to go into the world of people talking about beliefs. Some important terms for you to know. Whenever we refer to something as a false or limiting belief, right? That's sometimes what we refer to things as. This is just another word for disempowering beliefs, aka beliefs that don't serve us, right? And so those who live within the transformation paradigm, which is what you are getting into now, we are always on the hunt for identifying what our false and limiting beliefs are that are holding us back from being able to become and grow who we want to become, right? A lot of times the word false, I'm not a big fan of the word false beliefs, because a lot of times when I talk about false beliefs to myself is, hey, Yasin, you have this false belief about yourself. It kind of gets rejected by the mind a lot of times because our minds don't see beliefs as false, right? Yet we just see them as our beliefs. And so that's why I like the word limiting beliefs. It's a more common term for that as well. Okay. Real quick, another one, assumptions. Assumption is another cool term for beliefs. I like that one. This is one of my favorite ones. It really makes it easier for us to be able to change beliefs when we call them assumptions, right? When we call something an assumption, it takes away power from it, because the word belief can sometimes sound very big, right? I have a belief about money being this, right? It sounds very big, right? But then when you change it to like, hey, my assumption about this is, and all of a sudden it becomes a lot more approachable, right? It becomes something that you can help somebody else kind of tackle, and yourself tackle as well, right? And so I personally refer a lot of times to them as beliefs more often than not, but assumptions I will sometimes use as well, okay? A couple other important terms to know about beliefs. Beliefs, sometimes you can be referred to as mental images. They are sometimes referred to as stories, judgments, meanings, generalizations, assumptions, interpretations, superstitions, your thoughts about something. Those are what's going to be called your beliefs, your limiting beliefs, your false beliefs, right? And so as sentence starters, you can sometimes kind of use these right here as like, my belief about this is, my assumption about this is, my thoughts about these are, my generalization about this is, my superstition about this is, my interpretation about this is, my limiting belief around this might be, right? And so all of these are important terms. Like we talked about, words matter a lot. How you speak is how you think. And so this is why I wanted to go ahead and give you guys some important terms around beliefs as well. And then while we're at it, I also do want to go ahead and give you some other terms for paradigm. Again, these concepts of belief and paradigm, they're very abstract, right? They're very difficult to sometimes wrap your head around. And so having other words that mean the same thing are helpful. So other words for paradigm, a paradigm is also your worldview. It's the filter on reality. It's the movie in your head. It's the movie playing on. It's your belief system, your collection of all your beliefs. Your paradigm is the stories you tell yourself. It's the frame, your frame of thinking. It's an interpretation of reality. Paradigm, it's your lens, it's your angle, it's your narrative, it's your thought habit. It's the way people frame their observations of reality. That's what a paradigm is, right? So these are kind of like helping you define what a paradigm is a little bit more. Paradigms are your mental models, and as well as your mental frameworks, or just frameworks in general. Okay, so this is the other terms that are helpful when talking about your paradigm. Now, with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive into the last section. This training was a doozy, huh? But I promised you it was going to end. We were going to make it through here. Let's go ahead and talk about the last part of this entire training, which is the great illusion. The great illusion. Okay, so that is part 6 of this entire training. Let's go ahead and close out the show here. Let's talk about the great illusion, this awesome training that you've just gone through that is going to help you really open your eyes to everything that is reality. So obviously everything that we've learned so far, right? We've talked about beliefs, we've talked about confirmation bias, we've talked about how your brain works, we've talked about the RAS. As you can see, reality is not what society makes it out to be, right? So as we've learned, what creates your reality is actually your beliefs. And so as a result, there is no one true reality, right? The biggest lie that the mind tells us is that we can see reality for how reality is. And the moment that you begin to believe that lie, right? The moment that you begin to believe your mind and your brain that is telling you, yeah, I am seeing reality exactly how reality is, that is the moment that your life becomes much, much more difficult, okay? Because the truth is, at the end of the day, our minds are the ones that are creating reality. And it's because of the limitations of our brain, right? All of what life and what we perceive as reality is really honestly just one magnificent illusion created by our minds, right? It's not actually reality, okay? And so at the end of the day, if all of what people call reality is just one magnificent illusion created by our minds, then you shouldn't be worried about what society tells you that you should or must do, okay? Because at the end of the day, everyone's just making it up. Everyone just has their own beliefs about reality, right? At the end of the day, there are no rules. You can make up your own rules. You can make up your own reality, okay? And so as a result, whenever society is telling you, hey, you should do this, right? Hey, you must do this. Hey, you need to do this. Hey, you have to do this. All of those, whenever you hear these statements, all of these are society projecting its version of reality on you. And to emphasize, it's society projecting its version of reality that it made up on you. Okay. And so what society calls reality is something that collectively, over millions and millions and billions of people, what they all made up and what they believed in. And then they said, hey, they turned around and said, that is what we call reality. But they just made it up. And so I just want you to remember this. This is a very, very, very important statement, okay? It does not matter what is actually true, only what you believe is true. Because with work, it will also become true, okay? What you believe will become true with work. So don't worry about what society is telling you is true right now. Hey, society is telling you you are this. Society is telling you money is difficult to make. Society is telling you X, Y, Z. Don't worry about any of that. Only what you believe is true, because with work, that will also become true, okay? And so until you accept this fact that what you believe has the ability to become true, it is going to be very difficult for you to be able to succeed in life. I'm telling you right now, it is impossible for any coach, for any mentor to be able to speak to you and pour into you their beliefs that allowed them to become successful. It's impossible for them to do that until you accept that there is a possibility that your version of reality is not serving you. If you believe that you see reality for how reality is, if you believe that there is only one reality, if you believe that the reality that you are experiencing is the reality, then tell me, how can you even have a conversation with somebody who believes that, right? Because at the end of the day, they're going to say, nope, money is difficult for me. Nope, I can't make money. Nope, these ads are not working for me. Nope, money is this. Oh, nope. I am somebody who can't do sales. Nope. They're gonna keep going on about that because they're so sure that the reality that they have is the reality. And so until you are open to the possibility that the reality that you are experiencing is not actually reality, but instead the reconstruction of reality based on your beliefs, that is when the door of possibility opens for you. Because without this training today, it's impossible for you to even imagine that a different world is possible for you. And this applies to every area of your life. This is not only in your wealth. It's impossible for you to imagine that you can have a 6-figure income every year, every month, every day if you want. There are people out there who make literally 6 figures a day, right? And so you can't imagine that a different world is possible for you in your health until you realize that reality is just the beliefs that you have. You can't imagine that there's a different reality for your relationships, for your connection to something greater, until you realize that reality is just the beliefs that you have, right? And so my question to you ultimately is this. This is my final question to you here. If all of society is based on a grand illusion, right? If all of society is based on the magnificent illusion of reality, why not create your own? Why not create your own reality? Okay. So this training here, this program here is to tell you that you have the power to create your own reality. You can go out there and do it. If you believe it, you can make it happen. And with work, it will become reality. Okay. And so that is the grand illusion of life. And that is the grand illusion of your mind. And that is the grand illusion of society. And you have the power to create your own reality. Okay. And so with that being said, I know this training was a doozy. I know we're coming out here to close out this training. What you're going to go ahead and do is I would love to know your thoughts. Was I just off the wagon here? Or was I just going into like Wawa, Mojo Jojo, like mystical land over here? Or what resonated with you about this training? And so we want to hear from you, right? Let us know. Maybe this entire training was totally out there. It was something that you're like, you know what? This was terrible. Let us know. It doesn't matter. Even if you didn't get any value out of this training, let us know. If this was life-changing for you, if this was something that totally opened your eyes, let us know as well, right? Here's some sentence starters. Summarize what you learned. What are your thoughts on society's false belief of reality? Where do you see yourself applying what you learned from this training? Let us know about that as well, right? And what aha moments did you have from this training specifically? As always, this is just a reminder. This is your opportunity to engage. We'd love to hear from you. We do read all of your comments. So please let us know how things are in terms of what your thoughts were for this training. And with that being said, I will catch you on the next training.